Hey Met fans, Brian here at Mets Mayhem. The Mets just wrapped up Game 1 of a 4-game series versus the St. Louis Cardinals at Citi Field. Griffin Canning making the start for the 11-7 Mets, going on 6 days of rest, going up against Andre Palante and the St. Louis Cardinals, the 9-9 St. Louis Cardinals. At start of play tonight, the Mets were in first place in NL East, half a game up on the Philadelphia Phillies. The Cardinals sit in third place in the NL Central, a game and a half behind the Chicago Cubs. Before we get into the game recap, the Mets made a couple of roster moves. Max Kranick was recalled as the counter move for Jose Siri going on the IL. Kranick would have normally had to stay in the minor leagues for 15 days as a pitcher, but when replacing a player on the IL, that stipulation is removed. Justin Hageman, who made his major league debut yesterday and went 3 1/3 innings, was optioned back down to the minor leagues, and Jose Azocar was called up to give the Mets another capable outfielder, with Siri being out for a while. I'll talk more in detail about how I think Azocar isn't going to be on this roster for very long, and what other moves I expect the Mets to make over the next week in another video, but for now, let's get into Game 1, Mets-Cardinals. Griffin Canning on the mound for the Mets, facing the St. Louis Cardinals leadoff batter Lars Nootbaar. Lars gets on base at an elite level with an on-base percentage over 400. He didn't get on base this time. He worked the count to 2-2. He fouled off a couple pitches back. Then he hit a ground out to Francisco Lindor, who fired the ball over to Alonso at first for the first out of the game. Now, Canning got ahead of Wilson Contreras 1-2. He was relying on his fastball early in the count. However, he got to a full count and ended up walking Contreras. He really didn't have control of his slider and sinker. Cardinals shortstop Brendan Donovan was next up to face Griffin, and he pulled the 1-0 changeup to Brett Baty, getting the start at second base tonight, who went to second to Lindor, getting the force out of Contreras at second base. So now we have Donovan at first, two outs for the Cardinals, and Nolan Arenado coming up. The Cardinals desperately tried to trade Arenado in the offseason. There were no takers. He's off to a decent start so far. Look for the Cardinals to revisit trade talks around the trade deadline, maybe earlier, maybe the All-Star break, if he continues this up. I don't expect the Cardinals to go anywhere this season, so they're going to try to unload that contract. Look for the Yankees possibly to be a trade suitor for the Cardinals there. So anyway, Brandon Donovan stole second during the at-bat, but Canning is still struggling with his slider. He walked Arenado to put runners on first and second with 2 outs, and then Alec Burleson got under an 0-1 fastball, top of the zone, popped it up to Lindor at shortstop, and that was third out. Francisco Lindor is leading off for the New York Mets this evening against Andrew Palante, and he worked a 3-1 count before grounding up the middle for a base hit. Lindor at first, no one out, and Juan Soto at the plate, and Soto hits an 0-1 fastball hard, but right at shortstop Brendan Donovan, up the middle, steps on the bag, gets Lindor out, tosses over to Contreras at first, and now you have a double play. So now that brings up Pete Alonso with no one out. Pete Alonso had another excellent at-bat. He worked the count full, but he grounded out on the 6th pitch of the at-bat. Jordan Walker led off the top of the second inning for the Cardinals, and he hit a soft pop-up into foul territory behind first base, going towards the stands. Alonso went back, made a nice little half slide, and he caught it for the first out. Cardinals second baseman Nolan Gorman then popped up on a 2-1 pitch to the left side this time, and Mark Vientos made the catch to record the second out. Canning ended the frame by getting Pedro Pages to strike out on a slider that looked much better this time around than the ones he was throwing in the first inning. Mark Vientos batting cleanup for the Mets in this game, led off the bottom of the second inning, and he took a 1-0 fastball on the outer half of the plate over the fence in right field for his first home run of the year. So that gave the Mets a 1-0 early lead. Brandon Nimmo then got up, and he grounded out a 1-2 fastball, kind of got on top of it, hit it hard, but right to Brendan Donovan at shortstop, who fired over the Contreras at first, and that's the first out. Sterling Marte then followed by ripping a 4-seamer inside. It looks like the ball wasn't supposed to be that much inside. Sterling Marte is very quick inside. He ripped it to left field, got a double. So now we have Luis Torrens up, and he grounds out to Donovan. Donovan checks Marte at second base. So after he throws to first base, now we have 2 outs. Marte had to hold, and that brings up Brett Baty. So Brett Baty's up, Marte at second, 2 outs, and Baty gets a bloop hit on the left field line. Drives in Marte, gives them a 2-0 lead. So now we have Beatty at first. Tyrone Taylor, who's starting to make some solid contact of late, hits a line drive, base hit to center field. So Beatty gets to second base. Now we have runners on first and second, 2 outs. Francisco Lindor at the plate, and Lindor works the count full. Then he hits a line drive to right field that drives in Beatty. Taylor made it to third base on that hit. The throw from the right field was coming in towards home, so Lindor is rounding first base. It gets cut off by Contreras, and then Lindor's kind of trapped between now first and second. Lindor and the third base coach at this time is telling Taylor to keep going, so Taylor starts to go home. Lindor gets in a rundown. He manages to not get tagged until after Taylor crosses home plate, and then Lindor is tagged for the third out, but now the Mets have a 4-0 lead. So heads up play by Lindor, the Mets coaching staff, and Taylor on that play. After the game, Lindor gave all the credit to Taylor on that. I love how he is exhibiting leadership skills. He's not taking all the credit for himself. Clearly, he had a heads up, an idea right there. Hey, I'm caught. I'm in no man's land. I'm gonna get in a rundown, give him time to score. But he gave all the credit to Taylor and pretty much said that he made a bad play and just turned it into a decent play at the end of the day. So now Cannon's given a 4-0 lead. He's working the top of the third inning, and Victor Scott II leads off for the Cardinals, and he grounds a base hit up the middle. So now Lars Nootbaar at the plate, and Scott steals second. Torrens throws down. He's originally called out. It would be the first time that Scott II has been thrown out in 8 attempts. However, the Cardinals challenged the play, and the replays show that he just beat the tag. He slid in, he didn't come off the bag, and the call was reversed, and Scott II was called safe. So now we have a runner on second base, nobody out. So Lars Nootbaar's at bat continues. He worked the count full, but then Cannon struck him out for the first out of the inning. He made quicker work of Wilson Contreras next, striking him out on a 1-2 elevated fastball. So that's 2 outs. And then Brandon Donovan is now up. 2 outs. Scott still at second. Canning bounced the first pitch changeup for a wild pitch. So Scott II moved to third base. Canning went back to the changeup again in the next pitch. And then Donovan hit a ball up the middle. Lindor ranged over, crossed second base. He dove, stopped it. He just couldn't get the ball out of his glove in time to pop up and make the throw. So now it's a base hit for Donovan, RBI for Donovan. The Mets are leading still 4-1. That brings up Nolan Arenado. And then he grounds out to Beatty at second base, and that ends the top of the third inning. Juan Soto led off the bottom of the third inning, and he struck out on a slider low and away in the dirt for the first out. Pete Alonso had a rare at-bat for him so far this season where he chased a low and away slider out of the zone. He grounded out to Donovan at shortstop for the second out. And then Mark Vientos, who homered in his prior at-bat, hit a slow ground ball toward shortstop. Arenado cut off, barehanded it, and made the throw to first base, showing off why he is one of the best defensive third basemen of our time. Griffin Canning now on the mound at the top of the 4th inning, and he faces Alex Burleson, who laid down a bunt on the third base line for a single. Griffin, after a rocky first inning, found his control, and he struck out Jordan Walker and Nolan Gorman both, getting ahead of both of them and then attacking them to put them away for 2 quick outs. And then he faced Pedro Pajas, who worked the count full, fouled off a couple of pitches, and then Griffin Canning was able to put him away as well, and he struck out the side in the 4th inning. Brandon Nimmo led off the bottom of the 4th inning and hit a slow grounder to second baseman Nolan Gorman, who flipped the ball to Wilson Contreras for the first out. Sterling Marte then hit a soft liner to Gorman for the second out of the inning, and then Luis Torrens went first pitch swinging, hit a grounder on a high and away fastball right to Contreras at first for the third out. After striking out the side in the top of the 4th inning, Cannon starts off the top of the 5th in a similar fashion by striking out Victor Scott II for the first out. Lars Nootbaar then lined out to Tyrone Taylor in center field for the second out, and Wilson Contreras hit a soft grounder to Lindor at shortstop, who fired over to Alonso to retire the Cardinals in order again. Palente is still on the mound for the Cardinals and pitching better as the game is going. gets leadoff batter Brett Beatty to ground out to Nolan Gorman at second for the first out in the fifth. Tyrone Taylor then grounds out to the left side to Brendan Donovan for the second out. Francisco Lindor then went and reached for a 2-2 slider out of the strike zone and lined it to center field for a base hit, but Juan Soto grounded out to Nolan Arenado at third, who fired over to Contreras, and that ended the bottom of the fifth inning. Griffin Canning still going strong, pitching into the sixth inning, and he strikes out leadoff batter Brendan Donovan on a 3-2 changeup for the first out. He goes to a full count on Nolan Arenado as well and gets him to ground out to Lindor at shortstop for the second out. Alec Burleson then grounds out back to Canning on 0-1 changeup, and that retired the side 3 up, 3 down, and Canning has retired the last 10 Cardinals he has faced. Andre Palante is still going for the Cardinals, and he's facing Pete Alonso leading off the bottom half of the sixth inning, and he strikes out Alonso on a slider after falling behind 3-0. Mark Vientos hits a pitch inside, right at Nolan at third base, who fires across the diamond for the second out, and then Brandon Nimmo flew out on a 3-2 pitch to Lars Nootbaar in left field to end the bottom of the sixth. Griffin Canning's night was done. He went 6 strong, his first start where he didn't get pulled after getting into trouble, and the longest outing of the year for him thus far, so he left on a high note. Mets up 4-1. Reed Garrett on the mound for the Mets, and he gets the leadoff batter Jordan Walker to fly out to Tyrone Taylor in center field. Nolan Gorman then draws a full count walk to give the Cardinals their first base runner since the third inning. Pedro Pajes fouls a handful of pitches back. 2-2 count, 9 pitch at bat, but Garrett strikes him out on a high inning fastball after working him down almost the entire at bat. So we now have 2 outs. Victor Scott the second up, and he flies out to end the inning, right to Taylor in center field. So Matt Swanson on the mound for the Cardinals in the bottom of the seventh inning, and he's relieving Andre Palante. And Sterling Marte leads off for the Mets, and Swanson learned from Marte's at bat earlier that not to pitch him inside, so he pitched him the entire at bat off the plate. He got him to ground out to Nolan Gorman at second base for the first out. Luis Torrens then worked the count full, but he flew out to Jordan Walker in right field for the second out. So a quick 2 outs for Swanson and Brett Beatty at the plate for the Mets. Beatty takes the ball low, and then he jumps on the second pitch, a 1-0 cutter, kind of belt high inside, and he rips it to right field for a double. Luis and Halacunia then came on to pinch run for Beatty, and he's going to stay on and play second base the rest of the game. Tyrone Taylor then hits a hard liner, but right at Arenado, who's playing behind the bag and shaded kind of towards the line, and that ended the bottom of the seventh. AJ Minter on pitching for the Mets in the top of the eighth inning, and he retires the Cardinals in order, 3 up, 3 down, getting Lars Nootbaar to ground back to the box, Wilson Contreras to fly out to Taylor in center, and Brendan Donovan to line right out to Nimmo in left field, 1-2-3. John King on the mound for the Cardinals in relief of Swanson now, and he's facing Francisco Lindor leading off the bottom of the eighth inning, and King gets Lindor to ground out to Donovan at shortstop for the first out. Juan Soto walks on 4 pitches that weren't anywhere near the plate. And that brings up Pete Alonso with a runner on first and 1 out. Pete jumps on the first pitch, a changeup at the bottom of the strike zone, listed to left field. Lars Nootbaar makes the play. That's 2 outs. King then got a sinker inside on Vientos and got him to hit one right back up the middle. Right to King, completes the throw over to Contreras at first, and that's the third out. So top of the ninth inning now, Edwin Diaz on for the Mets, looking to pick up the save. Mets are up 4-1. Diaz once again for the third straight outing, walks the leadoff batter. Looks like he has no control at all. So now the Cardinals are down 3, has a leadoff batter on, no one out. Alec Burleson up. Something clicked. Diaz seems to have figured out his control issues from one batter to the next. And, he attacks Burleson. He strikes him out on a 2-2 fastball up and away for the first out. That brings up Jordan Walker, and then Jordan Walker swung at a down and away nasty slider for the second out of the inning. So now the Cardinals are down to the last out. Nolan Gorman's up, and Diaz gets him to hit a soft ground ball to Alonso, takes the ball to first base himself, and there we have it. That's the third and final out of the inning and the final out of the game. So some takeaways from this game. So far this season, I made it a point to point out the at-bats that Alonso has been having at the plate, also the discipline that he's displaying. As a batter, it's really important to not fall behind early, which often leads to the batter getting himself out, helping the pitcher out. Pete's doing a fantastic job of laying off of bad pitches. Alonso's currently seeing 4.75 pitches per plate appearance, which is almost a full pitch higher than his career average of 3.85. Now, Francisco Lindor has 8 leadoff hits this season. The Mets have won 7 of those games. After the game when this was brought up to Lindor, Lindor joked that he needs to get around 140 more leadoff hits so the Mets can continue to win games. I signed up for that in a heartbeat, but on a more serious note, Lindor was 3 for 4 this game. He's getting his average up. It's now 268, which is nice to see. Juan Soto is still struggling, but the great thing is these Mets are playing well. They're winning without Soto being Soto. So it's scary to think if he can get it going while everyone else is doing well, how this lineup will click. Pete Alonso had a rare offer, but is still batting .343 on the season. Mark Vientos hits his first home run of the season. Gotta love his confidence. After the game, when asked if he thought it was out the second he hit it, he had a big grin on his face and said, of course, yeah. Hopefully Swaggy V gets going now. He's having much better approaches at the plate. He's using the opposite field more. When he started to do that last year is when things started to take off for him. Brett Beatty had another multiple hit game. He had a double and an RBI. His average is now over 200 for the season. It's at 209. I mean, it's still not good, but it was much lower than that. He's hitting. So let's give him some more time, Met fans. Tyrone Taylor got a hit. He made solid contact the entire game. Should have had multiple hits. I mean, hit the ball right at people. Some good plays. But he's been making solid contact for the last couple of games now. Maybe the extra playing time will get him in a groove. We're going to need him with Siri out. Griffin Canning. Griffin Canning pitched his best game of the season. He struggled in the first inning a little bit with his breaking pitches, but he fixed that by the second inning, and he just cruised. At one point, he struck out 4 in a row. He retired the last 10 batters he faced. His stat line reads 6 innings pitched, which is the furthest he's gone so far this season. He gave up 1 run on only 3 hits. He walked 2 and struck out 8. I thought Mendoza getting him out after 6 innings was the right move. His prior starts, he pulled them mid-inning after getting in some trouble, giving him some rope and not being able to get out of trouble. This time, give him the opportunity to feel good about his start. He made it through 6, and his pitch count was up there. It was 102 pitches tonight, so it's a perfect time to turn it over to the bullpen. Speaking of the bullpen, the combination of Reed, Garrett, AJ Minter, and Diaz were lights out. Each pitched a scoreless inning, allowed no runs on no hits. Garrett getting a strikeout, with Diaz picked up 2 and picking up the save. The Mets win this game 1 of a 4-game series against the Cardinals. They moved to 12-7, dropped the Cardinals to 9-10. Friday's game is at 7:10 p.m. Eastern. We have David Peterson going up against Miles Michaelis. I'll be back after the game to provide a recap, as well as provide any other Met noteworthy news. But until then, Mets fans, let's go Mets.